I have no doubt whatsoever that the framework that we have put into place with President Obama and the energy team, a part of which I have been very involved in, will bring about the kind of lasting change that we need to harness new forms of energy. And I'm going to get back to your question on coal and oil and gas, but before I say it, I want to say this as well. That people sometimes ask the question about, didn't this all happen way back in Richard Nixon's days and Jimmy Carter's day? Wasn't it President Nixon who coined the term energy independence? And wasn't it President Carter who in a wool sweater got in front of the national audience and he said to everybody, it is time for us to become energy independent with the moral imperative of war? Well, in those days, we were importing about 30% of our oil from foreign countries. Today, we are importing nearly 70% of our oil from foreign countries. You think about economically what's happening with respect to the wealth transfer every year, where not millions, but hundreds of billions, in fact, last year, $700 billion, transfer of wealth overseas to Saudi Arabia and lots of those countries because we have not become energy independent. You all will remember what happened with solar and wind and geothermal and other forms of power in the late 70s and early 80s. Well, there was a spark for a few minutes, and then the spark of interest died. And so Republicans and Democrats slept at the switch, and our country became, in my view, hostage to foreign powers. Our foreign policy became hostage to oil, and we compromised our own national security. And today we know we've compromised our environmental security because of what's happening with the reality of global warming, which is no longer a debate. It is here, and we have to deal with those issues. And so I expect that one of the great things that you will see happen under President Obama's leadership and the leadership of the United States of America is this time things are different, because the drivers now are national security, economic security, and environmental security, and we are going to make this change. Now, having said that, coming back to I think one of the premises of your question, and that's oil and gas and coal. We need oil and gas and coal. Oil and gas and coal are very much a part of what powers our economy. And yes, we do give subsidies to oil and gas and coal. In fact, many of the subsidies have been there for 100 years, including those on public lands where we generate 50% of the coal for America. And so we will continue to husband those efforts along. Just in the time that I have been, even though the oil and gas industry doesn't seem to recognize us very much, but even during the time that I have been Secretary of Interior, which is less than 4 months, we have already leased out approximately 2.3 million acres of our public lands, our lands, your lands, my lands, everybody's lands, for them to go out and explore and develop. We've gone to the Gulf Coast, where I participated in the auction for the leasing of a part called Lease Sale 181, where over 1.7 million acres of the Gulf Coast were actually leased out. And we continue to do our development activities. So here's the deal. The essence of your question goes to how do we move forward with our energy portfolio for the United States of America. I can tell you, President Obama and I are strong believers that what we need to have is a comprehensive energy program. There will be a renewable energy component. There will be an efficiency component, which is huge for job creation for America, which includes companies that deal with insulation, which deal with all kinds of weatherization, windows, and construction. It also will deal with a part that deals with production of our conventional fuels.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. My name is Joe Stills. My question to you is this. I see that you gave a commitment toward youth for us, $38 million for us been set aside for us creation for working with the youth. My question is, seeing that the Department of Interior has been pretty much catered to states out west, what is the Department's Interior as far as with Midwest, as far as partnering with different Midwestern universities, and as far as some of the resources, as far as let people know how we have a real strong area here as far as the Metro Park system?
Joe, that's a great question, and let me just say we are going to be there to partner with you like you have never seen before. During my first week on the job, I went to the Statue of Liberty because I wanted to make a statement that we as a Department of Interior really are a department of the Americas. We're not just a department to the West. And yet, as I was going through my own Senate confirmation hearings, there were some who said that our responsibilities were mostly out in the West. Not true. We have huge responsibilities in Ohio with our national park systems, our historic sites, our wildlife refuges. I was in the Everglades last week looking at the great environmental and economic restoration projects that we're going to have down there. We're going to have one right here in the Great Lakes. We're going to have a whole host of other things that are directly beneficial to Ohio in terms of its economics, its environment, and its young people. And with respect to your question on how we will engage the young people here in America, we are moving forward in creating what will be a modernized 21st century civilian conservation corps. And we hope to engage thousands upon thousands of young people in the work that we already do. Cuyahoga National Park is already doing it in the ways in which I described with the young people of Cleveland schools being connected up to the great outdoors. So you will see, let me answer it maybe in this way. There are three very cross-cutting and important issues for me that I will prioritize during whatever time I am at Interior, whether that's 4 years or whether that's 8 years. And that's energy and climate change. It is the treasured landscapes of America, and it's the young people of America. And we will have failed if we frankly don't re-engage the young people of America to the landscapes of this great country. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. My name is Dan Rice. I'm President and CEO of the Ohio and Erie Canalway Coalition. In addition to our great national parks, we have one of our national heritage areas here in Northeast Ohio, the Ohio and Erie Canalway. I had the honor and privilege of testifying before your committee several times in the Senate. I know you're a strong supporter of heritage areas, with 3 heritage areas recently designated in Colorado. And as the National Park Service enters its 2nd century, I would be curious to learn your perspective on the relationship between national heritage areas and the National Park Service.
We will need to do a lot more to celebrate the landscapes, including the heritage areas of our country, and bring them into what we're doing as a nation. You know, many people do know the great natural wonders that have been part of the national park system for a long time. We can talk about Yosemite and Yellowstone. We can talk about the Everglades. But it's also important for us to talk about the other part, which national parks work on every day with thousands of these kinds of sites all over the country. And that's how we protect and uncover and celebrate the diverse heritage and history of all of America. I was in Atlanta, Georgia last week with Mrs. Ferris, who is Martin Luther King Jr.'s older sister. She's 2 years older, was 2 years older than MLK. And I spent probably an hour with her at the church, walking with her over to the birth home of Martin Luther King, where she showed me the bedroom where she was born as the older sister, where Martin and Dexter, the 2 younger brothers, were born. And we walked around that great home, the birth home of 3 members of their family. There is so much more to do in terms of the heritage tourism that is connected there. And when we do it right, we, number one, push forward the understanding of the great histories that we have here in America, as you are doing here with the Erie Canal. When we think about how the canal system was such a cardinal aspect of the development of the United States of America, because if it hadn't been for that canal system, this country would not have developed in the way that it developed. Few people know that story. And just like with the MLK neighborhood in Atlanta, the Erie Canal here, or the hundreds of heritage areas that we have around the country, we will need to do a lot more in terms of the historic conservation and celebration aspects of what we do with national parks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. My name is Bill Carroll, and I am the State Director for the Trust for Public Land here in Ohio, and a proud retiree of the National Park Service. And I'm sure I'm glad to see you today. This is really an honor. I'd like you to speak broadly about funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which has been unfunded for, or underfunded for many years. And then specifically, if you would, speak to how funding the Land and Water Conservation Fund will impact Ohio, and then really specific about the protection of Cuyahoga Valley National Park and the Blossom Music Center.
Somebody have a pen and a pencil I can write the questions. Thank you, Bill, and thank you for the great work of the Nature Conservancy and but all the conservation organizations do. It's a very important question.